Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. Welcome to a new episode, the last episode of the month of March. And today we're going to be talking all about rewriting our own rules. Yes, our rules around success and failure. I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I'm personally working on as part of my reinvention process this year that can maybe help you live a more fulfilling life. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. Okay, we are at the end of the first quarter of the year. It's bananas to believe that one full quarter is gone. Time is going by really, really fast. I feel every year goes faster and faster. Maybe it's just me, but there is this funny thing with time, right? And I want to close this first quarter of the year continuing the discussion around personal reinvention. I have shared with you before that I decided to make 2022 my year of reinvention. And I've shared a little bit about the topic, and I want to continue to share what are the things that I'm working on and the things that I'm learning as I go through this process. And today, I want to share with you something that has been very eye opening, very impactful, and very transformational for me in this journey. This is something that I learned through UHPW and UPW, Unleash the Power Within. And it's a very simple exercise, if you will. And it sounds like common sense once you hear it, but I never thought about it this way. And therefore, I never worked on it on this way. And I have talked before on the podcast a lot about limiting beliefs, and I've talked about setting goals, and I've talked about vision and all these things, right? And I think this was the missing link for me. One thing that has been holding me back, really, and that as I'm going through this reinvention process has been, as I said, transformational. The first thing is to realize that there is a big difference between being successful and being fulfilled. And I've always chased success, right? I always believe that if I only can be successful, then I will be happy. And a lot of people I know think like me in this way, right? You need to be successful in order to be happy. But what does being successful mean? And here's where it gets tricky, right? Because I think we all have different definitions of what success means. And in our journey of achieving success, I've also shared with you that one of the main things that holds us back, one of the main things that hold me back, that have hold me back from being successful is the fear of failure, which is a very common fear that many people have, right? We are chasing success, but we are afraid of failing. Or even there's people that are afraid of succeeding because of what would be the consequences of them succeeding. And all of this becomes really subjective because we all have different definitions of what success and failure means. And what I've learned through this process, through my own journey, is that we all have different definitions that we make up throughout our lives. If I ask you right now, what would it take for you to be successful? You will come up with something that is completely different than what I would probably come up with. For me, success in the past was all about achievement. It was all about achieving a certain position, achieving a certain salary income, achieving, being able to buy a particular house or have something in particular, or my relationship to look a particular way, or my friendships to look a particular way. It was all things that I wanted to have or experience, and I made my own definition and my own rules around what success meant to me, right? And when I look at the different areas of my life, and this is an exercise that I would really encourage you to go through on your own time, is if you go through all the areas in your life, try to write down what is your definition of success in all of these areas in your life. So if I talk about my career, for example, success is reaching a particular position or getting to a particular level in the organization or making a particular level of compensation. If I think about relationships, what does success look like in your relationship? Is it, being married for your entire life? Is it having a playful relationship? Is it that your partner loves you in a certain way? What does that mean? In your family and friendships, what does success look like? To have a lot of friends? To have a few but really good friends? It's to live close to your family, or to talk to them on a regular basis, or feeling that they have your back. Like, what does success mean to you? In your spiritual life, the same thing. What does success mean to you? In your financial aspect of your life, what does success mean to you? Do you want to have $1 million or $10 million, or a big house, or a particular car? What does success mean to you? And all those things that you can think of are basically rules that you have made for yourself. We all create rules for ourselves, and we say, these are the rules of the game. If I'm going to be successful, these are the things that I need in order to be successful. And those becomes our rules. If we get all the things that we think will bring us success, then we will be successful. And then our thought is, or our hope is, that that will bring us happiness. The same we can say for failure, right? We all have our own rules around failure. If we go through the different areas of our lives and we say, what does failing mean in these areas? If it's your career, is it not getting the promotion or getting fired? Or maybe it's not finishing a project on time. When it's about your relationship, what does failure mean? That you get divorced, that you split up, that you don't have an intimate relationship with your partner? What does failure mean for your relationships? What does it mean for your finances? That you have debt, maybe, or that you haven't accomplished a certain level of income. So you can do this exercise both for your successes and your failures. What are the rules that you have created around success and failure? And here's the thing, all those rules, there might not even be your own rules. Those most likely are things that you have picked up throughout your life, probably things that you developed or you picked up or you created years ago. And now you're a different person. Life is different. The world is different, for God's sake, after the pandemic, right? But we continue to measure our level of success or failure using the same rules, which we don't even know where those rules came from, right? Because they're certainly not universal rules. Otherwise, we all would define success in the same way. And this was really eye opening. But during the UPW event, Tony Robbins shared a story of an event that he was at. And there was this man who was millionaire. And he asked this man, are you successful? And he said, no. And Tony asked him why. And he's like, well, I'm not successful because I'm not making yet $10 million a year. And he was making, I don't know what the story was, $4 million a year. He's like, and I'm not successful because I want to have 14% like body fat. And he maybe had a 16% body fat. And I'm not happy because I don't have this particular house, right? But this man, in the eyes of everybody else, was or is a very successful man, right? He has his own businesses. He's a millionaire. He has an amazing family, a great relationship with his family. But in his mind, he was not successful. And therefore, in his mind, not happy. But then Tony asked another person in the audience, sir, are you successful? And he's like, absolutely, I am successful. And Tony asked him, why are you successful? And he's like, well, I woke up this morning, I'm alive. That means I'm successful. Very different definitions around success, right? Very different rules that these two men had around what it means to be successful. And we could do the same thing with failure, right? What are your rules for what failure means? And here's the thing, if we want to live happy, fulfilling lives, we need to rewrite our rules around success and failure. And this is an exercise that I've been working on in the last months this year on trying to figure out what are all these rules that I have made for myself around success and failure. And let me tell you that as I've been working on this exercise, I realized that a lot of these things are things that are only in my subconscious, because when I tried to think about them, I couldn't think about what they were. I started brainstorming, like, what are these rules that I have for myself? I don't think I have rules. But then I started to think about it and I journal about it and I came out with a long list of rules of what would it take for me to consider myself to be successful and what it takes for me to consider myself that I failed. And I'm someone who has very high expectations for myself. So, what I was doing is I had created all these rules around what would it take for me to be successful that were 100 times more difficult to achieve than the rules that I had made up for myself around failure, which means it was so much easy for me to feel that I failed that for me to feel that I succeeded, and always feel that left me feeling that maybe I'm not good enough or I will never be able to achieve things that I want to achieve, or feeling that I failed. And I was creating this vicious cycle for myself. And when I was on UPW and Tony Robbins shared the cycle of success or the cycle of momentum, I'm like, oh my God, I had this big breakthrough because this is what has happened to me over a long period of time, right? And this cycle has four components: beliefs, potential, action, and results. And I shared this cycle before because this is something that we worked at UHPW. So I think between UHPW and UPW, it was really eye opening for me that I've been in this endless loop of this cycle where I could not change my reality because I never looked at what were the rules that I have made up for myself. So, this is how the cycle works. I'm going to start at the end, right? We all are in the pursuit of certain results. We all want to achieve certain things in life. We all have goals. I consider myself to be a goal-oriented person, so I'm always pursuing goals for myself. I want to achieve certain results. And of course, in order to achieve those results, I take action. I make a plan, I put a plan in place, and I take action to achieve those results. But somehow there's been times that of course I've achieved those results, but there's times that I fall short of achieving those results. And now I know why. It all stems in the beliefs, right? The amount of belief that we have determines the amount of potential that we tap into. And I personally believe that all human beings have unlimited potential. We just don't tap in our full potential all the time. And I think this is exactly what has happened to me. And I know if you know me, you're listening and you're like, what are you talking about? You are successful. You have demonstrated a lot of potential. And probably that is true. I'm convinced that is true. Yes, I consider myself to be successful in many areas of my life. I consider myself as someone that has a lot of potential and I believe in myself. But there's always a but, right? I believe that I have not been tapping in my full potential. I have much more potential that I haven't tapped into yet. And the reason why is these rules that I've created for myself, which have constituted my beliefs. These beliefs that I have around what success and failure means have prevent me from tapping into my full potential. And not only my rules around success and failure, but just rules around life, rules about who I am or who I should be that have limited the potential that I've tapped into in the past. Now, the amount of potential that we tap into determines the amount and size of the actions that we take. So here's the thing, there's been times in my life that I fall short in the types of actions that I take. And that is because of my fear of failure. And that fear of failure exists only because I have created these rules around what failure means and what success means. Now, the amount of action that we take determines the results that we get. And it becomes a cycle, right? Because if I only take extra small actions, I only gonna get extra small results. And if I get extra small results, that just reinforces the beliefs, those limiting beliefs that hold me back in the first place. And then we get capturing this cycle. Imagine it as a circle, right? A cycle that goes on and goes on. If we have limiting beliefs, that impacts the amount of potential that we tapped into, which determines the size of the actions that we take, which determines the results that we achieve. And those results reinforce the belief that we had in the first place. Because as human beings, we're always looking for evidence that supports our beliefs. Let me repeat that one more time for those that were distracted. Our beliefs determine how much potential we tapped into. How the amount of potential that we tapped into determines the size of our actions, which determine our results. And our results reinforce again the beliefs that we've already had, because as human beings, we're constantly looking for evidence that supports our beliefs. That's why letting go of our limiting beliefs is so important. If we're able to move from our limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs, then we're able to break the cycle. Because if we have empowering beliefs, those are going to allow us to tap into more of our potential, which is going to drive us to take even larger actions that are going to create even bigger results that are going to reinforce the same empowering beliefs. So I guess you can break the cycle in any of the steps. But for me, it's been important to break it at the belief level and start with what are my beliefs, what are my rules, the rules that I have created around what success and failure means to me. So I want to share with you the new definitions that I came up for success and failure. I decided that I'm scrapping up all the rules that I have created in the past around what means to be successful and what means to fail. And I'm replacing them with new definitions and new rules for myself. And this is what I mean by rewriting your rules. You get to scrap your old rules and you get to rewrite the rules that you have for yourself. So, what I want to do is, I want to share with you a recording that I did very spontaneously as I was working on this. One thing that I've been doing as I'm working on this reinvention process is I have my phone with me all the time. So, I've been using the recording capabilities of my phone, and I keep like voice memos of things as they come to my mind. And the quality of the audio is probably not going to be the best, but I want to share with you what spontaneously I came up as my definitions for success and failure. Here we go. So, my rule for success is waking up every morning vibrant, energized, looking forward to my day, feeling grateful, being with my family. Success is about treasuring magic moments. Success is about making an impact in other people around me. It doesn't matter how many people, even if it's just one person. And success for me is growing, continuously growing and evolving. Success means progress. Success means going to bed every night feeling fulfilled, feeling at peace, feeling proud because I gave my all. No matter what the outcome was, I gave my all. I pushed myself 2 more millimeters that day. And failure, well, failure means giving up. Failure means stop trying, quitting. Failure means giving up on myself, giving up on my relationships, giving up on my purpose, giving up on myself. So those are my definitions, my new definitions, my new rules for success and failure. And all these things came to my mind as I am walking on the treadmill. So you can hear my breathing is a little bit heavy, but that's because I was just finishing working out. And I find that in my morning routine, during my morning routine, I've shared with you how my morning routine looks like in previous podcast episodes, but I work out every morning. And I've been doing my workouts, and then I go on my treadmill and I walk while I listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or I self reflect, like this day that I was reflecting on my new definitions of success and failure. And this is what I came up. And it feels so freeing not having all these rules that I need to live by in order to feel that I am successful. These are very simple, definitions of success and failure that don't tie me to a certain level of achievement. Because I mentioned in previous podcast episodes how many times you had this big goal that you work for, that you work your butt at getting to for a long period of time. And then you cross that finish line, you achieve that goal, and you celebrated and you felt proud of yourself. But let me ask you something. For how long did that feeling lasted? For me personally, there's been many times that I've crossed that finish line on those big goals that at one time I thought I could not achieve, and then I did. And yes, I did felt very proud of myself, but the fulfillment did not stay there. So what happens is that I'm constantly looking for what is the next goal that I need to achieve, because that feeling that I'm after, and you have heard me say this before, all the goals that we set for ourselves, all the things that we set ourselves to achieve, the only reason that we chase those things is because we believe that achieving those things is going to make us feel a certain way. What we're really after is that feeling. But when our lives revolve only around achievement, we're constantly looking for what is the next thing that we need to achieve, because that level of fulfillment doesn't stick around for a long time. So we always need to be in the cycle of achieving something so we can get those feelings that we're looking for. But with my new definition of success and failure, I don't need to achieve big things in order to feel successful. I just need to wake up every morning feeling energized and vibrant, feeling passionate about what I'm doing, making a contribution, learning and growing, and going to bed feeling proud of myself because I gave my best, because I pushed myself another 2 millimeters more than what I thought my limit was. And no matter whether I achieve what I was after or not, I still will feel successful. And that way, that feeling that I'm after all the time, it's a feeling that I can keep. Isn't that crazy? I know it sounds really simple, but it has made a big difference for me. Every night before I go to bed, I ask myself, was I successful today? And there's been many days that I felt that I failed that day based on the old rules that I had around what it took for me to feel successful. But now I find myself more often than not being successful because I grew that day, because I was of service to other people that day, because I contributed to something bigger myself, because I pushed myself outside of my comfort zone. And that way I feel successful. And now it's easier for me to feel successful than to feel that I'm a failure or that I failed. Because now it's easier to achieve my definition of success than it is to achieve my definition of failure. Because failure for me is giving up. And I'm not the kind of person that gives up. So going to UPW was really eye opening for me, because all these things are things that I've struggled for years, right? I lived by all these rules that I had made for myself for so many years. And I was trapped in this cycle for a long period of time, always chasing the next big thing in pursuit of feeling a certain way. And after UPW, everything was so crystal clear. It's so crystal clear for me that my old rules of success and failure were BS. It didn't feel that way 2 weeks ago, but now I know. I look at them and I laugh because they're BS. And sorry for my French. And now I get to rewrite my rules. And this is just the beginning. I started with success and failure, but my next move now is to do the same for every single area in my life. I'm going to rewrite my rules specifically for every single area of my life. And as I do that, not only I'm going to rewrite my rules, but I'm going to raise my standards. And if you listen to the previous podcast episode where I summarize my key takeaways from UPW, you know what I'm talking about. But if you didn't listen to the podcast, don't worry, because that probably is going to be the next podcast episode next week on how to raise your standards. So that's what I have for you today. I hope today inspires you to take a few minutes to reflect for yourself on what are the rules that you have created for yourself around success and failure. And then as you write them down, you toss them apart and rewrite those rules. You rewrite your rules around success and failure. Okay, everyone, that is what I have for you this week. If you like today's podcast episode, I'm going to ask you a big favor. Please share this podcast episode with anyone in your life that you think can benefit from today's content. Or you can share it on Instagram or Facebook and tag me. My account is Leading Yourself Podcast. I will personally send you a thank you note if you help me spread the word of the podcast. With that, I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you again next week on another episode of the Leading Yourself Podcast.